Hello, and welcome to Using Microsoft Office Equation Editor Part 2. In this part, we're going to concentrate on using the equation editor with the keyboard, or at least for the most part. In this part, we're going to concentrate mostly on keyboard shortcuts. So what are keyboard shortcuts? Well, they allow you to enter in formulas with minimal mousal involvement. Shortcuts usually begin with a backslash, as shown, but not always. Shortcuts end usually when the spacebar is hit. For example, backslash sqrt left paren x right paren followed by the spacebar transforms into the square root of x. Now some of you may be thinking, hang on, this looks very familiar. Well, if you've ever used TeX or LaTeX, it's similar but not exactly the same. And one nice feature of the shortcuts is if you hit the Alt and the equal sign, that will insert an equation editor object into Microsoft Word or PowerPoint and so on. So, for example, you don't have to go up to the Insert tab and click on that giant pi symbol anymore, just Alt equal sign. And as usual, you would use the keyboard normally for letters, numbers, and so on. So, as we've shown before, a backslash sqrt left paren x right paren followed by the spacebar inserts the square root of x. But let's continue on and show you some more keyboard shortcuts. Backslash sqrt left paren x plus 1 right paren followed by the spacebar inserts the square root of x plus 1. Backslash pm inserts the plus or minus symbol. Not to be outdone, backslash mp inserts the minus and plus symbol. And of course, a series of Greek letters, backslash alpha with lowercase a inserts the lowercase letter alpha, and backslash alpha with uppercase letter a inserts the uppercase alpha, and so on and so forth, all the way down to gamma in this example, but of course all the other Greek letters are available as well. Backslash gamma with lowercase g inserts the lowercase gamma, and backslash gamma with a capital G inserts the capital gamma. Backslash times inserts the multiplication x symbol. Backslash infty inserts the infinity symbol. Backslash cbrt left paren x right paren inserts the cube root of x. Backslash int inserts the integral symbol. Backslash c dots inserts the 3 continuation dots. Backslash c dot inserts just a single dot. Now, rather than going through every single available shortcut, you can find the rest of them available in the Tools group in Equation Tools. For example, in the Equation Tools, in the Tools group, click on the down arrow as you see there, and that will bring up the Equation Options dialog box, which is shown on the next slide. And there it is. Next, click on the Math Autocorrect button. Next pops up the Autocorrect dialog box, and you'll be placed on the Math Autocorrect tab. As you see on your screen, you have several keyboard shortcuts available for you. For example, backslash PSI, backslash capital PSI, backslash quadratic, and so on and so forth. There's a whole list there beyond what I've shown you already. You can also insert your own if you want to. Just fill in the replace input box, and then fill in the with input box, and then you're all ready to go. Let's talk about some more shortcuts. In this case, we're going to show you shortcuts that don't necessarily start with a backslash. For example, x caret 2, or the symbol above the number 6, that is shift number 6, it inserts x squared. And of course, not to be outdone, left paren x plus 1 right paren caret 2 inserts the quantity x plus 1 squared. X over y, or x forward slash y, inserts x over y, which is very nice. By the way, you want to try to avoid, if you're using Equation Editor, you want to try to avoid the 1/2 symbol and the 3/4 symbol that comes from the font. Just stick with x over y. For example, 1/y, hit the space bar, and you'll be given a nice 1/2 or 1/2. 3/4, that'll insert a 3/4, and everything will be very consistent rather than using the font 1/2, 3/4. You get the general idea. And again, not to be outdone, left paren x plus 1 right paren forward slash left paren y plus 2 right paren followed by the spacebar, of course, inserts x plus 1 over y plus 2. Take note that the parens go away, which is very nice because it's basically the parens are saying to Equation Editor, hey, I want all this stuff in the numerator followed by the forward slash, and hey, I want all this stuff in the denominator. Now, again, I'm going to harp on this again. Look for the subtle highlighting. So, for example, my cursor is on the left side of the equation. I moved over one character to the right, and take a look that you have x squared plus 1 all highlighted. That indicates that the dotted box for the numerator has been replaced with x squared plus 1. Now I'm in the denominator, so the y cubed plus 2 now is what's in the dotted box for the denominator. And then I'm on the far right hand corner of the equation. Nothing's highlighted because you're not in any dotted box at that point. Let's talk about superscripts, subscripts, and evaluation limits for integrals. So for example, we've seen x caret 2 inserts x squared, but x underscore 2 inserts x sub 2. Not to be outdone, x caret 2 underscore 2 creates x sub 2 squared. And you can do the similar thing with integrals. Backslash int will create an integral. Underscore 0 caret 5 inserts the integral from 0 to 5. The underscore 0 indicates the lower bound, and the caret 5 indicates the upper bound. Let's talk about evaluation limits for integrals using the backslash left keyboard shortcut. So let's say we have this integral from 0 to 5 of x squared plus 1 dx. If we were to evaluate the integral, obviously it's x cubed over 3 plus x, but you'll note for the equation at the top, the evaluation limits has a very small vertical bar, but for the equation at the bottom, the vertical bar is much larger. Well, the correct one in this case is the bottom equation, because the vertical bar is the same height as the entire equation. For example, the x cubed over 3, it's the same height. So how do you manage to get the vertical bar to be correct? Well, for the upper one, let's say you've entered in on the keyboard x caret 3 over 3, that gets you your x cubed over 3, plus, and you can enter in backslash left, followed by the space bar, then x, and then a vertical bar indicating the vertical bar evaluation limits. Then you follow by an underscore, followed by the number that will serve as the lower limit, the caret, and the number followed by the upper limit. And that will produce what you see on the upper branch. Now for the lower branch, if we actually want that vertical bar to take into account the x cubed over 3, we enter in backslash left, followed by the space bar, x caret 3 over 3, that basically is x cubed over 3, plus the x, then your vertical bar, your underscore, your lower limit, your caret, and your 5, which is your upper limit. Now, I mentioned before that the linear option rather than the professional option isn't always used. In this case, it's very nice to take a look at the linear option, especially when using backslash left, just in case your vertical bar isn't exactly working out as planned. So for example, notice that the backslash left has been replaced by this very strange symbol. And then at the end of the equation, there's another very strange symbol indicating that the vertical bar is to take into account the entire equation starting from the first strange symbol to the last strange symbol. So if things aren't quite working out, here's the chance to use that linear option. Let's talk about functions, for example, sine, cosine, log, and so on. For example, you can enter in log left paren x right paren, followed by the spacebar, and that will insert log of x. Now, take note that the log function is not italicized, but the variable is, as it should be. You can also do sine of x plus 1 or sine left paren x plus 1 right paren, and that will insert sine of x plus 1. Again, notice that the sine function name is not italicized, but the x actually is. You can find many more of these functions by going into the Equations option dialog box and clicking on the Recognized Functions button. And when you do that, you'll be brought into the Recognized Math Functions dialog box. And as you see on your screen, there's a list of functions, for example, arc cosine, arc hyperbolic cosine, and so on and so forth. Now, you can also enter in your own function by typing into the input box the name of your function and clicking the Add button. Now, let's do a simple formula using the keyboard shortcuts. For example, very familiar equation. We actually did it as our example number 1 in part 1 of this lecture. And here basically is the steps you go through. But again, as we've done before, that's very boring. So let's go into Microsoft Word and take a look at how to do this. Okay, let's use keyboard shortcuts in order to create this formula. As you see, we have our reference formula on the screen. I'm now going to hit Alt equals. There's my equation editor object. And I'm going to follow up with x equals. Okay, that doesn't change. Now we have a part of an equation that's got a numerator and denominator. It's a fraction. So I'm going to start with a left paren, and this will be for the numerator. I'm going to then start typing in the equation, minus b. Then I'm going to put in plus or minus, so it's backslash PM, spacebar. Then I'm going to do square root backslash SQRT left paren. Take note that that left paren stays there. You will have to end what's inside the radical with the right paren in order to tell Equation Editor where that horizontal bar, that upper horizontal bar, ends. So let's continue. B caret 2 is b squared, spacebar, minus 4ac. Now I'm going to end the radical here, right paren, spacebar. There we go. The horizontal bar above the radical is fine. Now I'm going to end the numerator. There it is. That's the end. Now we're going to say, okay, here's the rest of the fraction. Now I can either enter in 2a alone, or I can continue with the left paren and put in a 2a. Either way, it'll work. Next thing we do, spacebar. There you go. That's it. Very simple. And example number 4. Let's do a more complex formula. In this case, let's produce that integral from 0 to 5 of x squared plus 1 dx, and then we're going to follow with an equal sign, and we're going to evaluate the integral x cubed over 3 plus x with the vertical bar going from 0 to 5. And again, here are the steps, but let's go into Microsoft Word anyway. Okay, let's do a more complex example. As you see, there's a reference equation right on the screen. I'm going to put in an equation editor object, alt equal sign. There you go. And let's start off with an integral, so it's backslash int. Then I want to have range from 0 to 5. So I'm going to do underscore for the 0, caret for the 5, spacebar. There you go. Now we're going to enter in x squared plus 1, x squared plus 1. Okay. Now notice the highlighting. I'm still within the dotted box. I'm going to move my cursor over one space to the right. Now I'm no longer in the dotted box. I'm going to type in that dx now because that does not belong as part of the equation that is within the dotted box. Follow up with an equal sign. Now I know I want my vertical bar from 0 to 5 to be as high as that x cubed over 3. So I'm going to put in the left. So backslash left, spacebar. There's that crazy symbol. Now we're going to do x cubed divided by 3 plus x. Okay. Now I'm going to do the vertical bar. I'm going to do underscore 0 for the lower limit, caret 5 for the upper limit. Hit the spacebar, and there you go. It's just that simple. Now let's talk about transforming pre-existing text formulas into equation editor objects. Now you can highlight a text formula and just click Alt followed by the equal sign. Now you will have to clean up the superscripts because the superscripts are basically destroyed, and I'll show you what that means in a second. So for example, here's your basic ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We've seen this before, but this is all entered in by the keyboard. That 2 there is a superscript. This is not an equation editor object. But what happens if you want to turn it into an equation editor object? Well, you can basically highlight that ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, smash on the Alt equal sign, and you wind up getting what's on your screen now, the equation editor object of the equation. Well, almost of the equation. If you take a look, ax squared has been transformed into ax followed by the number 2. Now, to fix this, you would just go in and place a caret symbol between the x and the 2, move your cursor past the 2, and you would smash on the spacebar. And you wind up getting ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, just like you wanted to in the beginning. So it's very nice. If you have a lot of these pre-existing text formulas and you want to transform them all into equation editor objects, you don't have to start exactly from the beginning. Sure, you will have to clean up a few things, but it's better than starting from scratch. Now, you can actually enter in multiple shortcuts up front. So for example, here we have ax squared plus by squared plus cz squared equals 0. And that's basically just using the keyboard and using superscripts. All those 2's are superscripts. I highlighted that equation. I smashed on the Alt equal sign, and I wound up with what you're seeing on your screen, which is an equation editor object. And again, all of the superscripts have been just reduced down to just the number 2, which is fine. You can actually go into that equation editor object and place a caret between the x and the 2, place a caret between the y and the 2, place a caret between the z and the 2, move your cursor to the end of the line, and smash on the spacebar. And you wind up with ax squared plus by squared plus cz squared equals 0. In other words, you don't have to always just move past every one of those 2's and hit the spacebar. You can enter in all of these shortcuts, and then at the very end, hit the spacebar. They should transform all of them. You may have to enter in the spacebar more than once in order to take all of the shortcuts you've entered in. Now, let's talk about inconsistent minus signs. Now in Microsoft Word, you have the benefit, I'm guessing, of several different minus signs. For example, in that first row, that's the normal minus sign or hyphen you have on your keyboard. And that's what that looks like, a very short, stubby minus sign, which is fine. Another one is the N dash, which is a little bit longer. And then you have the M dash, which is the longest dash. So how do we get the N dash? Well, if you've ever entered in like a formula like 1 minus 2 or something using the dash and you hit the space bar, Microsoft Word lovingly transforms your minus sign, your little dash there on the left-hand side, into the N dash you see on the right-hand side. You may not want that to happen, but it happens anyway. So if you've used the minus sign or hyphen, what happens in an equation editor object when you go to highlight a pre-existing text formula and you hit the alt equal sign? Well, the equation editor object will replace it with the correct minus sign that the equation editor actually uses. Unfortunately, if you use the N dash or the M dash, the equation editor is a little bit inconsistent. You will have to go back and replace all those crazy minus signs. You most likely won't ever encounter an M dash. You will encounter an N dash because as you're typing formulas in Microsoft Word without the equation editor, Microsoft Word will transform some of those dashes into the longer dashes with the N dash. So you want to kind of go in and, for example, here's an equation basically using the keyboard, ax squared, and all those squares are superscripts. And you'll notice that I've done it two different ways. For example, the first row is the correct one. The second row is the incorrect one. So you want to go back in and replace all those, whatever those are, those dashes, those supposed minus signs, with the correct equation editor minus sign. Otherwise, the minus signs will be inconsistent when you print them off.